Hey, Tofa. Greetings. Hope everybody's doing good. This is Leotawa Dr. John Peterson, and you are watching the Alofa Movement YouTube channel. And we're talking a little bit about sports cards here again tonight. Hope everyone's had a good Christmas, a good holidays, good Hanukkah. We got New Year's coming up this weekend, which should be nice. New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day. Guessing there'll be a fair amount of football on that people can watch, which is fun. So yeah, hope everyone's doing well. We've had a decent amount of snow here this year so far, or this winter here in Minnesota, and have been out using the snow blower and shoveling and doing all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, hope you're doing well and you're living blessed, and I hope only good things for you as you watch this program tonight. So thanks for tuning in, and if you could hit the subscribe or like button. We've had a few subscribers sign up, but still would like to get some more. So, and if you have any questions, put it in the live chat, and I'll do my very best to respond to the chats as they come in. So tonight we're talking about the name of the sports cards business that I run. Well, actually, the business I run is called TE2 Consulting LLC. We recently changed the name from TE2 Education and Engineering Consulting LLC to just TE2 Consulting LLC, which was nice, little shorter, a little cleaner. And then within TE2, I do a sports cards piece where I sell sports cards online, mostly graded cards. I've only put one up so far on eBay, but I have a few others coming in and a few that I could put up. Just kind of being patient, taking my time with that. But the name of the sports cards part of TE2 is called Edge Sports Cards. That's Edge Sports Cards, or just ESC if you want to escape into Edge Sports Cards. I don't know, whatever. So I know people like the acronyms and stuff like that. So anyway, tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about submitting your cards for grading. And I want to talk specifically about some of the things that I've heard and learned over the last couple months that you need to do with respect to getting your cards graded. Getting your cards graded is not cheap. Definitely costs money and can cost a lot of money depending on which service you use, which grading company you decide to go with. Of course, you have PSA, you have BGS, which is Beckett, you have SGC, you've got CSG, which I've been using, HGA. What am I missing? Yeah, I can't remember. Or HMA, HGA, I don't know. I'm not sure. They've got some interesting slabs. That company has some color matching that they do with the cards and with the holder, which is kind of cool with the flip part of the holder. So the slab. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk a little bit. I plan to do a reveal of the 4 cards I submitted to CSG about 3 weeks ago. When those come in, I will definitely put a YouTube video up and do a reveal, an unboxing, as they say. I just learned that from Eli, my friend, in the last couple days. But what I wanted to do is show you all the front end of the process and how that looks. So let's kind of talk a little bit about how that works. So CSG, they have some specific guidelines that they like people to follow when you submit your cards for grading. They have a variety of services. Of course, they've got bulk, which I think it's maybe like $10 or $12 somewhere in there. They've got economy. I think they've got one called standard. Their highest end one is called Walkthrough Ultimate, which is pretty expensive, and I have done it before. I think it's almost like $100 a card. But the thing I like about CSG is that they don't charge you more for the more that the card is worth. So if the card is worth $1,000, they just make you use the highest end, or no, not the highest end, but like a certain level. So the card can't be worth more than a certain amount. And if it is, then you have to bump it up to the next level in terms of having that card graded. But there is a ceiling, and I believe that ceiling is Walkthrough Ultimate, which is a premium service that kicks the cards back to you in a really short time period. I think when I did that the last time, it was, I don't know, less than 10 days, which I think is pretty good. But again, you pay for it. I mean, it's more expensive. So, so CSG has some specific things that they want you to do before you submit your cards. One is you want to make sure that your cards are clean. So you want to make sure that you've taken a look at them, for sure, wipe them off. You also want to make sure that the cards are in good condition. I mean, if that's your thing. Now, some people, what they'll do is they'll submit cards that they know are not of the highest quality, which I don't personally do. I guess to each their own. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. But I like to try and find cards that are in the best condition that I have of the cards that I've got, because I think it just makes more sense for like a return on your investment to try and get cards that are in better condition. And so what it means is you got to spend some time looking at your cards. You gotta kind of screen them, as they say. So the first thing that I look for is centering. You definitely want to have you want to pick a card that has good centering. Now, I know that PSA is a little more lenient, or at least historically have been more lenient on having gem mint cards that are 10 that aren't exactly 50-50 centered, which is fine. I mean, that's their thing. But I know that CSG does not look at it that way. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, on CSG's website, they say that the centering is actually measured by artificial intelligence. So I don't think a human is actually measuring the width and the length of the cards and then the borders. I think that portion of it is done by AI. The other parts, in terms of corners, edges, surface, those types of things, I believe are still done by humans, by human eyes, looking at that through a microscope or something like that, or Jewel. But yeah, so you want to make sure basically, the long end of the story is you want to make sure that you are carefully reviewing your cards, because if you spend 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 getting a card graded, you got to make that money back. I mean, otherwise, if you sell it, if you intend to sell it, now if you just want to put it in your personal collection, that might be a different situation. But if you have any intentions of selling it for a business, which I do, you're going to want to make sure that you get it graded at the highest level that you can get it graded at. So you want to check for the surface and make sure there aren't any scratches or indentations on the surface, creases, little marks, things of that nature. I mentioned centering is important. I always go with centering. I like a centered card. If everything else is sharp, I might consider a non-centered card or a less than centered card, but usually I don't do anything more than 35-65. 35-65 meaning 35% of the border is here and 65% is on the other side. So, I just heard somebody, that's Michael, my wife. The other thing you want to look for are the corners. Okay, you want to make sure that the corners are as sharp as possible. I like to use this tool, which I picked up online. Just basically a magnifier. Pretty straightforward. Has a light on it. Okay. And then what you do is you take the card and you put it down on the card and you look inside of it. And when you look inside or look into the microscope, you can see really, 10, 15, 20 times magnification of anything that is on the card. I highly recommend using one of these when you look at your cards, and also looking at your cards in good light. You want to have good lighting when you look at them, because if you have low light, it's kind of hard to see some of the defects. Some of the things you want to look for, obviously, are edges, corners. I think the phrase that people use is, corners can be touched, rough. Sometimes I use the phrase tough, like this card's in kind of a tough condition. Especially when looking at vintage, it's hard to find things that are centered. Yesterday, my friend Eli also talked to me about and told me about diamond cut, when the card is miscut, but it's cut at an angle. And so the image is this way, but the cut is this way. That's called diamond cut. He also talked about fisheye. when you get these little fisheye print defects that kind of are circular on cards. Sometimes you can see those. Sometimes you get like staining with the ink. Sometimes you get something like a fingerprint, right? So like, especially with the newer cards, if you don't have clean hands and you have a little oil, your hands always have a little oil on them, you can put a fingerprint on a card. And to my knowledge, the grading companies don't wipe the cards down. Too much liability. So, and some of these cards are worth, thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I wouldn't want to mess with somebody's card either if I was grading it. So those are some of the things to look for when you're screening your cards. I think it's good to screen your cards more than once. So I know it might seem a little bit redundant and repetitive or doing the most, but if you really want to maximize the investment of having your cards graded, you got to make sure you look at them closely. Sometimes it's nice to get a second opinion. So sometimes I'll give my cards that I want to have graded to my wife, and she'll take a look at them and give me her opinion on them as well. So getting a couple different perspectives on cards, I think, is good. I can't tell you the number of times I've had a stack of cards that I thought were going to be graded, and then I look at them a little more closely a second and maybe a third time. Yeah, no, I'm not going to send that in, because if I get a 7 or an 8 on that card and I can only sell it for like $30, $40, it's kind of a wash. So you got to be careful, and you got to be detail oriented when you look at the cards that you want to have graded. That is if you want them to be marketable and you want to try and sell them. So that's the first piece. The second piece is I personally use the Ultra Pro holder. An Ultra Pro semi-rigid is my favorite. I know other people use other brands, but I use the Ultra Pro semi-rigid, and it's the grading size. So it's this size. This is the back of a card. I'm not going to show it yet, but it's about this big. I don't put my cards into penny sleeves, which are little polyurethane penny sleeves that protect cards from being scratched and being damaged. They're really kind of flimsy, and but they do protect the cards nicely. I don't put those my cards into those when I have them graded. I just put them directly into the Ultra Pro semi-rigid. It's important though, when you put it in, you got to be careful that you don't like nick the corners or scrape the bottom of the card in any way. And also too, you want to make sure that you have the Ultra Pro kind of open like this. See if you can see that, to make sure that when you slide the card into the sleeve, the surface of the card doesn't get scratched. Now, most of these Ultra Pro sleeves, semi-rigid sleeves, don't scratch your card, but you got to be careful. And I try and carefully slide it in and open it up just a little bit when I put it put the card into the sleeve. So the magnifier, sleeve, and screening. All right, magnifier, or should I say screening, use the magnifier, put it into the sleeve. I don't use a penny sleeve. Some people do. I don't. Personally, I think the penny sleeve is a little bit too much. But to each their own. If you think it will better protect your card as it's being looked at and graded and in transit from your place to Sarasota, in this case, is where CSG is located, then go for it. A couple other things I wanted to show folks. CSG also mentions that they like it when people separate their cards using cardboard. So what I do is I cut these out, and then I place a card here like this, okay? And then I put another card on the other side like this, and then another piece of cardboard. You want to make sure your cardboard is longer and wider than the length and the width of the card that you're having sent in. And then you just stack your cards like that. It's nice because it protects the edges. Even though the cards are in the semi-rigid holders, they can still get bent. And you want to make sure you have something protecting both the surface and the sides of the card. So I use these little pieces. This is what CSG suggests. They say use cardboard. And so I've got my stack of cardboard here. And then what I'll probably do with this group is I'll split them into two groups. and then I'll put a rubber band that is not loose, but definitely not tight around the cardboard, the two bunches of cardboard. Okay, and then what happens is you put your cardboard into your box. Okay, I'm going to use this box for this next submission, and then I use bubble tape, and you can pick this up at Target, Walmart, FedEx, UPS, different places, the post office, different places sell this. Usually what I'll do is I'll wrap each cardboard bunch in bubble tape, maybe once or twice, maybe twice. And then I'll put either packing, popcorn, whatever it's called, and then put some more of this around the outside, or I'll just put this around the outside. Typically, I don't put the cards into a bubble mailer. I just use the bubble tape or the packing peanuts. That's what it's called, packing peanuts, not popcorn. That's hilarious. So yeah, it's good. And sometimes you'll get stuff in the mail that you purchase on eBay or purchase from somewhere. And I would say save some of that stuff and reuse it again. I mean, it saves on the environment and it lowers your overhead costs if you reuse stuff. So today I was cutting out cardboard pieces. So once you've got your cards in the bunch, then what you're going to want to do, oh, and before that, you have to actually go onto the website, the CSG website, and enter in your cards. Pick your service level, and then you have to pay. So you have to pay up front. Now, they don't charge you until after the cards have been graded, which is kind of nice. The charge, I don't think, shows up on your credit card statement. I could be wrong with that, but if I am, don't hold it against me. So we've got that. What else? Oh, and there's a packing slip that you have to print out that goes into the box. So when you send the cards, you've got to make sure that the packing slip goes into the box. They will use that packing slip to help send back your cards. You have to pick your level of insurance. Typically, this time of year, I use UPS. I've been using UPS pretty much for every shipping thing that I've done. It's a little more expensive than United States Postal, but you don't have to wait nearly as long in line, at least not at the UPS service store that I go to, UPS store. FedEx is okay too. There's nothing wrong with FedEx. I just prefer to use UPS. And so that's who I send my stuff with. They only insure up to like $100 though, which is not great, but I don't know. Sometimes you just got to roll with it and hope that your stuff gets through. And usually when CSG gets your stuff, they send you an email and let you know that your stuff has arrived and they've got it. So I think UPS is safe. USPS, mostly safe, depending on where you live. If you live in the big city, it can be kind of a little bit more sketchy. But this time of year, it gets so busy at the post office with people sending stuff over the holidays. You end up waiting 45 minutes in line just to send one thing. I just prefer to go to UPS and pay a little extra. So there's that. You pick your service level. Again, that's bulk, economy, standard, walkthrough, ultimate walkthrough, or walkthrough ultimate. You pay, you put your packing slip, you print that out and put it in the box. Pack up your cards nice and safe. And then you label your box and then take it into the store and they send it off. I know that CSG also likes when people label their boxes with like WT, which stands for walkthrough, or E for economy, or ST for standard. It just lets them know how to prioritize the boxes as they receive them. So I've been putting that on the sides and the bottoms of the boxes. So, all right. So now for the part that you've been waiting for, which cards am I going to send in next to CSG to have graded? Now, for those of you that saw the first episode, you know that I'm kind of starting off with CSG. PSA's prices are still too high. I mean, it's ridiculous. They did a $50 thing last week. It was a lottery, but I didn't even attempt to get into that. Right now, PSA is $100 a card. I've got a bunch of 1986 McDonald's football cards I want to get graded. I'm not sending them in at $100 an hour. That's ridiculous. Even if the cards sell for like $1,000. It's still too much. So I'm going to wait to send those into PSA after their prices come down, hopefully middle of 2022. I did reach out to CSG though, and their customer service I thought was excellent. And I told them about those cards, and they said they were going to order some oversized slabs holders just for those cards. So they said it would take a couple months. So I'm going to check with them back in like mid-February to see where they're at with that, because that was about 2 weeks ago when I spoke to them, and they said that they would come up with some bigger slabs. So I definitely want to have some of those McDonald's cards graded by CSG. So CSG has, I think, the best slab in the industry. They have half grades, right? So they do 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, 9.5. Their 9.5 is equivalent to a PSA 10 gem mint. And I was just watching a YouTube video about an hour ago, and this person was saying that they thought that about 25% of all CSG 9s actually are PSA 10s, are equivalent to PSA 10s. So when you figure that into the equation, really the number of 9s that CSG has is about 75%, and the number of 9s that PSA gives back is generally about 75%. So if you assume, and again, making an assumption on what this YouTuber said, if 25% of all CSG 9s technically are 10s or 9.5s, I should say that, gem mint, really the 9 rate is about the same as PSAs. I prefer CSG. Here's why. One, I think they have higher levels of validity. They're more accurate with their scores. Two, they have higher levels of reliability. So when I've looked at cards, and I've looked at a lot in the last month, when you look at them, I think there's more consistency in terms of what an 8 is with CSG than there is with what an 8 is with PSA. I don't really even deal with SGC and Beckett Grading Services. I mean, their prices are like flat rate $250, so I don't even consider working with them. If I had cards that were worth like 10,000 and above, maybe I would, but that's just too rich for my blood. So I think the validity and the reliability of the CSG grading is fantastic. They have a relationship with Fanatics. Fanatics is going to be owning the printing and the publishing rights to most of the sports cards, basketball, football, baseball, in the near future, for sure by 2025, which is a game changer. And CSG is part of the CGC family, which includes grading of comics, coins, stamps, you name it. I know they're up and coming and have only been around a year in sports cards grading, but I think they're fantastic. The flip could be a little bit better, sure, but it's not a huge deal when you get the subgrades. I personally like to get the subgrades, and I don't know that I'm going to send in any cards that don't have the subgrades. I much prefer the look of the flip, which is the top part of the card, when it has the subgrades. Plus, the subgrades confirm at a higher level of validity, accuracy, and reliability consistency why the card got the grade that it got, the grade it got. If that makes sense. So you got to make sure you know what you're getting. And with CSG, there's no questions. You know what it graded for corners. You know what it graded for centering. You know what it graded for edges. And you know what it graded for surface. And there's no questions with it. And also, too, they're a little tougher, but they're more accurate. With PSA, I'm hearing people say that PSA is trying to limit the number of gem mint 10s that they have out there, but like how they're doing that and how they're determining that doesn't seem to be transparent to me, or as transparent as it could be. And part of the reason is because they don't do subgrades. So if I've got a card that gets an 8 that looks like a 10, well, how do I know why it's not a 10? You have no clue with PSA. CSG, that's not an issue. You know exactly why it got an 8 rather than a 9.5. And also, too, it's not an average of the 4 subgrades. CSG is not an average of the 4 subgrades. CSG is the lowest grade that the card has for subgrade. Let's say it subgrades at 9.5 on centering, 9 on edges, and 9.5 on corners, but it's 8.5 on surface. The highest grade you're going to get is a 9.0, right? So it's a half grade higher than the lowest grade, the lowest subgrade you get, which when you think about it, logically makes sense, right? Like, why should the card be a 9.5 when one of the subgrades is below a 9.5? You know, if the subgrade of surface is 8.5, why should you get a 9.5? So I think that there's some correlation between definitely a 9.5 gem mint CSG and a PSA 10. And I also think that there is a strong correlation between about 25% of the CSG 9s being equivalent to PSA 10s. And all you got to do is just look at some PSA 10s and know that not all the PSA 10s out there are genuine gem mint 10s. It's not. I've seen evidence that that's the case. Also, too, CSG has a 10, which is a pristine, which is very hard to get. And then they even have a level above that, which is 10 perfect, which is a plus, plus, plus. And I haven't seen anyone with a 10 perfect. But it's there. It's available. Maybe someone will get it someday. Maybe it'll be you. I hope it is. I hope it's me, and I hope it's you. That'd be great. So all that being said, CSG, I like CSG for a long-term play. As my friend Eli has been saying and others have been saying, if you're looking to flip cards right now, like quick, I would say go with PSA or SGC or some other brand, some other company. CSG is still kind of early in the stages of the game, but first quarter, yeah, they're going to be strong. It's not how you start the game, it's how you finish it. And I think in 3-4 years, CSG is either going to be number 1 or 1A. They're going to leapfrog SGC. SGC's cards don't carry very much value. They really don't. I mean, when you go to a show and you see SGC graded cards, do you really buy those? No, most. Not the people that I know, not the people that I see. Beckett Grading Service or Beckett Vintage Grading, yes. I do see those, and I think their slabs look pretty nice. They're pretty sweet, especially the black gem mint 10 or whatever it's called, pristine 10. Those are pretty sweet if you're lucky enough to have one of those. Of course, PSA. You know, PSA has a 90% share of the market, but I don't know. Their slabs are kind of boring to me. I mean, I'm not a big fan. They look okay. I think they're a little thin and they're a little lightweight compared to CSG. The CSG has what I would call weight and value. And that value is locked into their consistent grading and their accurate grading. And that's something long-term you can't beat. So that's my soapbox for CSG. All right, card number 1. I put these in numerical order based on year. And I separated them baseball and basketball. So all the cards getting submitted tomorrow will be baseball and basketball. Card number 1. 1954 Warren Spahn. Picked this up recently. I actually have 2 of these. This one is the one in better condition. Warren Spahn, I think he had 363 wins, winningest left-handed pitcher in the history of baseball. And of course, he played for the Milwaukee Braves, won a World Series in 1957, and was part of a fantastic pitching staff in the 1950s and 1960s. Incidentally, I believe he fought in the Korean War and lost a couple years to service. And so when you think about it, like I was talking with my friend Mike Whelan, had he not been in the service, he might have won 400 games. And that would have been incredible. I think he's, if not the best left-handed pitcher of all time, top 3 easily. Maybe Lefty Grove, Sandy Koufax possibly, although Koufax's career wasn't as long as Spawn's. And Koufax wasn't as good of a pitcher early on. And who else? Steve Carlton. Steve Carlton was a pretty good pitcher. He had a lot of longevity. So 54 Topps, Warren Spahn. You can see that the edges are decent. I don't see any chipping on this card. Corners, yeah, a little touched. Maybe a 7. I'm hoping for an 8. Maybe a 7.5 in this, which would be fantastic. The card's from 1954. So, next card, Don Mossi. Famous Don Mossi. Won a World Series in 1954 with the Cleveland Indians. Was on the same pitching staff with Bob Feller. Okay, Bullet Bob Feller, who I believe could throw a fastball like 108 miles an hour or something crazy like that. Ted Williams said he was the hardest throwing pitcher he ever faced. So that says something. Mossi, this is his rookie card. And believe it or not, this guy was a good pitcher. I think he was a middle reliever. And maybe he kind of did some relief pitching too. But this card, I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try and move it up a little bit closer. This card is in really nice shape. In fact, it's the nicest Mossi that I've seen. I'm hoping to get maybe a 9 from CSG with this. Probably won't. Maybe an 8. Maybe an 8.5 if I'm lucky. But wouldn't it be sweet if I got a 9? This, as the 9, sold incidentally about a month or two ago for about $1,100. So I thought this was a nice pickup. I didn't have to pay much for this card. Found it digging in some pile of a row of 1955 Topps cards. Back looks pretty clean. Nice card. Next card, again, another Warren Spahn. All right, so this is his 1956 Topps card. What a beautiful card. All right, I love the 56 Topps. I love the 55 Topps. I also love the 54 Topps. I think 54, 55, 56 is kind of my 3 favorite years. This was known as the golden era of baseball. 56, I believe the Yankees won the World Series in 56. 54 was Cleveland. 55 was Brooklyn. 56 were the Yankees. And then 57, the Braves. And 58, I think, was again the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken. So great card. Warren Spahn, 1956. Card's in pretty good shape. Yeah. If I get an 8, I'll be thrilled. I think this is probably closer to a 7, though, if I'm really being realistic. But hey, a 7 in the 1956 Warren Spahn from CSG. Now, this might be a PSA 9 or PSA 8. Yeah. No, I'd rather take a CSG in a lower grade and know that what I'm getting is exactly what it should be. Next one, Scooter Rizzuto. Phil Rizzuto. This is a 1956 as well. You can see the profile picture or the headshot and then the action photo that was painted on the back. This card's in nice shape. I picked this up about a month ago. It really wasn't too expensive. I think maybe, I don't know, $90 at the most, $100. Good shape. Be curious to see what this grade's at. Again, if I can get this to be even a 7.5 in CSG, that's basically a PSA 8. And most of these older cards, vintage cards, don't go up much past 9. So Phil Rizzuto, shortstop for the New York Yankees. Next card, 1957 Roberto Clemente. One of my all-time favorite pictures of Clemente. One of my all-time favorite cards. Again, the Bob Clemente thing. His name was Roberto Clemente. All right. Puerto Rican-born baseball player. Played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Hall of Famer, 5-tool, maybe the greatest 5-tool baseball player in the history of the game in terms of running, throwing, catching, fielding, hitting. Just an amazing baseball player. An amazing person, too. So, I don't know. This maybe 6.5, 6. You can see the cut is not centered. The rest of the card's in pretty good shape, but this is a pretty valuable card, actually. Well, I'll be curious to see what I get on that one. Next one, 1959 Frank Robinson. All right, playing for the Cincinnati Redlegs. Frank Robinson hit well over 500 home runs. I think he was 583 or something. I mean, he almost hit 600 home runs. So people forget and sleep on Frank Robinson. Plus, he was a champion for equity and equality back in the 1960s. And I think he was the first, if not one of the first, managers of color, black manager in baseball history. So love Frank Robinson. And for some reason, I seem to get Frank Robinson cards in pretty good condition. Now, this is not his rookie card. His rookie card would be 1957, which is an awesome card. It's a picture of him holding a bat, in kind of a batting stance. But I like this one. This 59 is nice. I always like it when you can see the full uniform of the player. 1959 Frank Robinson. I don't know, maybe an 8. We'll see. All right. Recently elected into the Hall of Fame. Pitcher, left-handed pitcher, Jim Kaat. This is his 1960 rookie card. This card has gone up in value just in the last month. I think the 9s for this are selling for over $1,000. And the 8s are holding their value pretty well too. I think the 8s are around $300, $400, $500. So maybe not quite that much. Maybe closer to like $350, which is still quite a bit. That's great. What a cool card, right? A lot of people know this layout of the 60 Topps rookie card because of the Carl Yastrzemski rookie. For those of you that might be familiar with that card. But yeah, recently elected into the Hall of Fame. Great left-handed pitcher. Started off with the Washington Senators and spent most, if not all, of his career with the Minnesota Twins. So I'm hoping to get this graded. The only issue with this card is if you look closely at the top, there's some chipping. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the cut or if that's wear on the card. It's kind of hard to tell. I did put it under the microscope, and I'd say 2 of the 4 corners have been touched a little bit, but not too terrible. I don't know, maybe a 7. Next card. All right, this is kind of an interesting card. 1964, you can tell by the white border. National League ERA leaders. And Sandy Koufax, Bob Friend, and Dick Ellsworth. I'm not so familiar with Dick Ellsworth, but I've heard of course, Koufax. I have a rookie card of his. Not in great shape, but it's still a rookie card nonetheless. And then Bob Friend was a pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Solid pitcher. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but Koufax, obviously one of the greatest left-handers, had probably a 5 to 7 year stretch where he was damn near unhittable in the 1960s, early 60s into the mid-60s. Wasn't quite that good in the 50s. His rookie card is 1955, but in 64, yeah, his ERA was 1.88 in 1963. And I think he won like 25 games or something ridiculous like that. So, I mean, incredible. Now, here's the unique thing about this card, and this is why I'm getting it graded. It's card number 1. And card number 1 with a lot of these older cards tends to be a rougher card and harder to find in good condition because it was usually at the top of the pile. And that's where the rubber band was, right? For those of you that have had cards, of course, you put the rubber band on, and if you number them or you put them in numerical order, the top card always gets the most wear. I picked this up at a shop. I think I paid $5 for this. Now, if this comes back as a 9, this could be worth upwards of like $800, $900. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily sell it for that. Just because it's selling for a certain price doesn't mean that's what you're going to get for the price, a sold price. But still, to spend $5 and get this card, corners are real sharp. Of course, the cut on the bottom is the issue. But we'll see. Maybe a 7, maybe a 7.5, maybe an 8. I don't know. All right, this is a newer card. This is from 1996. This is a Metal Universe, a 1996 Metal Universe Platinum Edition Derek Jeter. Okay. Now, the Metal Universe cards at the time were printed by Marvel. Marvel owned the publishing rights and the printing rights to this set of cards. And I don't know if they did later on, because Metal ran for a few years. I have some like 1990 Metal. But these are great cards. I think they're fantastic. And each card was uniquely made. So the background for each card is different. It's not a huge set. I think there's less than 200 cards in the set. There's base level cards, and then there's these cards, which are called Platinum Edition cards. Now, this card in a 10, this card is currently selling for like, well, one person is selling it for like $60,000 on eBay. Man, that guy's got to be smoking some really good stuff, because this card is not a $60,000 card. However, in a 9, I think this card you could get anywhere from $800 to $1,000 for this card. And if it's a gem mint, it's gonna be worth something. So, will I get a 9.5 on this with CSG? Doubt it. This corner down here has a little tiny touch on it, but all the other corners are sharp. I checked them out with the microscope. But a fun card. You can see at the time in 1997, I paid $8 for this card. Expensive, right? 1996, 97, $8 for a card was a lot back then, especially for a new card. But I don't think this card has been anywhere other than in the penny sleeve. Now, you notice this one's in a penny sleeve. I decided to leave it in the penny sleeve that it was originally in, rather than take it out, because I didn't want to futz around with having to get it out of that penny sleeve. Jeter cards have been going up. Some people think Jeter is top 5 New York Yankee. So you got Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, and Derek Jeter. So that puts him ahead of people like Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra, a bunch of players, a bunch of nice players. So, yeah, some people don't care for Jeter. Here nor there. I think he was a fantastic shortstop. Great captain, great leader. Maybe not the best person. I've heard he was a bit of a womanizer, but what do I know? So that's the Jeter, 96. So now we're going to move to Topps basketball, 1971 basketball. So the first card that I want to show folks is actually a duplicate. These are 2 cards from the 1971 Topps set. This is a card of a guy named Dan Issel, or Dan Issel. Issel, Dan Issel, Dan Issel. I can't remember how they pronounce it, one way or the other, or maybe both ways. This is a team, the Kentucky Colonels. So this is back when there was an ABA. Now, this is his rookie card. So I was pretty excited when I found this at a shop here in the last couple of weeks. He was a nice player. Averaged 29.9 points a game as a rookie. Had over 1,000 rebounds, almost had 2,500 points. He's Hall of Fame. Like, as a scorer in the 70s, I think he was pretty prolific. The condition of the card, well, you can see in this one, it's got a little bit of a diamond cut to it. So this part here is thinner than this part down here. And you can see that this is not a 50-50 border. It's hard. I can't even really tell you what I think this card's going to grade out. The corners are fantastic. Surface looks good. Don't see any fisheye on it. Yeah, nice card. Other than the diamond cut, of course. In this one, the imaging or the printing kind of bled over. And when you look at it with the microscope, you can see that it borders all the way around. Oh, sorry, all the way up here. So we'll see. We'll see how it grades. Maybe 7. I don't know. Interesting to see. Oh, good catch. Next card, Rick Barry. Rick Barry, also a prolific scorer from the ABA. This card's New York Nets. What did he average? In 70-71 for the New York Nets, he averaged 29.4 points a game. In 66-67, That cat averaged 35.6 points a game. He made 753 free throws. Wow. Now, if you know Rick Barry, you also know that he shot his free throws granny style. So he shot them between his leg and then spun it up like this, like Wilt Chamberlain did. He's like one of the greatest free throw shooters in the history of the ABA and the NBA. I think his percentage is up around 87 or 88%. It's ridiculous. And he shot it granny style. I think that's great. Oh, Rick Barry. He's kind of a piece of work if you've ever heard him do announcing of games and stuff like that. But this card's actually a pretty decent card. The cut obviously is a little off center, probably 65-35. So maybe a 6.5, maybe a 7. If I get a 7 on this, I'll be thrilled. Final card. We're at 45 minutes. This is going long, so sorry about that. This is a 1971 NBA Rebounds Leader card. Now, if you look closely, you can see it's Wilt Chamberlain, Elvin Hayes, and one and only Lou Alcindor, who a couple years later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So this card's pretty clean. I think the centering's not perfect on the sides. It's probably closer to 55-45. On the top, it's also probably 55-45. But 3 of the corners are real sharp. This one here is a little touched. So when I looked at that one under the microscope, I could see that it had a little wear to it. But overall, a fun card. I mean, how often do you get a card with Wilt Chamberlain and Elvin Hayes and Lou Alcindor on it? So, and again, the 1971 Topps. Yeah, so those are the cards. Warren Spahn, Don Mossi, Warren Spahn, Phil Rizzuto, Bob Clemente, Roberto Clemente, of course, Frank Robinson, Jim Cott, ERA Leaders card, Jeter, Metal Universe, the 2 Issel rookie cards, Granny Free Throw Shooter, Rick Barry, and the Rebounds Leader card. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to enter these into the CSG website. I'm going to do it tonight, and I'll probably do 30 days, so I'll spend a little bit more. I will probably I'm going to spend the extra $10 to get the subgrades on these, and then I'm also going to do the high-resolution image, which is an additional $5. So, it makes it easier. You don't have to take pictures. It makes it look more professional when you list it on eBay too. So to not have to take a picture of this with your phone and then transfer it to your desktop or your laptop and then convert it to a JPEG, it's definitely worth the extra $5 to me. Plus, I'm not doing tons of cards. I'm not having 100 or 200 or 300 cards getting graded, which some people do, and that's totally fine. That's their dish. That's cool. I tend to be a little bit more lower on the cards that I submit for grading. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there. 48 minutes. That's a long episode, but for some people, this is their life, and this is what they really enjoy doing. They're super passionate about it. So if you hung in there with me, make sure you subscribe and or hit the like button. And hope everyone has a great New Year's Eve. I may jump on New Year's Eve day or New Year's Eve to do another episode. Got a couple different things that I can talk about. Picked up some Redman cards here a while back, and those are kind of fun. They're not in great shape, but fun cards. I hadn't had any of those ever, so I got them for a pretty good price. So anyway, take care. Faftai, thank you. Faftai is thank you in Samoan. And I hope you have a blessed rest of the evening and week. Take care.